we're keeping it alive, the value of these little airports and
Mhm.
what they bring to the community, what they bring to aviation. It's so much more than, a strip of concrete on the ground.
It is, and it's been said oftentimes, you build a mile of road, you can drive a mile. You build a mile of runway, you can go anywhere.
From AirHeart Innovation Series, this is What Follows with Nate Thuli.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What Follows, the podcast where we explore the people, ideas, and innovations shaping the future of aviation. I'm Nate Thuli, president of AirHeart Aeronautics. Today's episode is a special one. If you're listening before July 20th, you're probably getting ready for aviation's biggest event of the year. And if you've never been before, you're probably wondering, what exactly is AirVenture? Why do pilots and fans of aviation talk about it with such excitement? What should you see? What shouldn't you miss? And how do you make the most of one incredible week? Today, we're dedicating an entire episode to answering just those questions. Joining us is someone who knows AirVenture better than almost anyone. Dick Knapinski is Director of Communications at the Experimental Aircraft Association, better known as EAA. He's been part of the organization for more than 25 years, holds a private pilot certificate, and has spent decades telling the stories that make Oshkosh unlike any other aviation gathering in the world. This special AirVenture edition of What Follows is brought to you by AirHeart Aeronautics. Visit the AirHeart Festival tent during EAA AirVenture 2026 for complimentary educational programming, guest speakers, meet and greets, and hands-on AirHeart avionics simulator experiences. Register today using the link in the show notes. If you'd like the full details on how to attend any of our Oshkosh AirVenture 26 programming or book a spot to fly our sim, I'll put the link in the description below. All right, Dick, welcome to the show. Thanks for being on.
Well, this is terrific. Thanks so much for the invitation. Looking forward to this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're talking about one of the most exciting things in aviation going on every year, and so I'm thrilled about it. So we got a special episode today, right? We're talking about AirVenture, we're talking about Oshkosh, and that's not only a flagship event in aviation, but there's a lot of history to that, right? Can you kind of unpack a little bit the history behind AirVenture and kind of how it became what it is today?
Yeah, AirVenture really started when you go back to the very beginnings of the Experimental Aircraft Association, or EAA, back in 1953. The organization was founded in Milwaukee in January of 1953, and by September of 1953, they had accumulated a couple hundred members. And there was an event called the Wisconsin Air Pageant that was going on, and it was at was Curtis Wright Airport in Milwaukee, now Timmerman Airport. And the people who organized that asked Paul Poberezny, the founder of EAA, could some of your people come out with their home-built airplanes? And he said, sure. So they brought it out as an adjunct to that. The first fly-in convention had 21 airplanes, 150 people for that very first two-day event that they had in Milwaukee. A matter of fact, they said everybody gathered and had Saturday night dinner in the Miller Brewing Company hangar around the airport. Well, we can't do that anymore.
No, yeah. So times have changed since the 50s.
Yep. And so it was in Milwaukee through most of the 1950s and slowly outgrew the spot at Timmerman. And so in 1959, they moved to Rockford, Illinois, and the airport there had a lot of room, but it kept growing. And a decade later, in 1969, they had already moved locations on the airport once, and they were running out of room. And the airport authority said, boy, we've got a lot of stuff going on at the airport. We can't expand your area anymore. So it kind of left the fly-in homeless. But Paul Poberezny flew with the Wisconsin Air National Guard at the time. He was a maintenance officer with the Air Guard. And from Milwaukee, where he was based, he drew a 300-mile circle outside Milwaukee. And as he would take airplanes out for maintenance checks, he would fly over airports. And so he started looking around. And at the same time, Steve Whitman, who was the manager of the Winnebago County Airport up here in Oshkosh, said, hey, Paul, have you ever considered Oshkosh? Because it has two very long runways that don't cross, which is very unusual for airline service airlines at the time. And so you can park a lot of airplanes, a lot of vehicles, put up a lot of tents, things like that. And Paul said, sure. So they got approval from the county board, and in 1970 brought the fly-in to Oshkosh for the first time.
Wow.
Still a relatively small event. It probably covered about 1/8 to 1/10 of the area it does now, but it has grown over the 50 plus years since then, and now is the world's largest fly-in convention and really home for I don't know, I'll call it aviation's family reunion every year because it doesn't matter what you fly or like to see flying, it happens at Oshkosh.
Yeah. No, I mean it's the breadth of everything. It's the richness of the experience that I think gets everybody. And I mean, at this point, millions of visitors, right? Thousands of aircraft have come through. Pilots from, I would say, probably nearly every country in the world have been coming in for this at this point. What do you think it is that draws people back? People keep coming back. It's not a you go one time and you've been there. There's a lot of following that goes with this. What do you think that is?
It's a lot, and Paul Poberezny said it so well. People come for the airplanes the first time. They see things together, airplanes and people in one spot that you can't see anyplace else in the world. But they come back for the people. It's those kindred spirits. Those of us involved in aviation, a lot of times we spend time explaining to our neighbors why we fly, how we pay for it, why the airplane takes the money away from the car and all of those type of things. When you get to Oshkosh, everybody speaks the language. You don't have to explain a thing. Everybody gets it.
Yeah.
And you're here, there's a culture of that, you have an ultralight, great. You fly a business jet, terrific. You built your own airplane, magnificent. Welcome. And that kind of spirit that we're all in this together, and here's our spot to celebrate that, is something that makes it very special and makes Oshkosh Oshkosh. I'm not sure you could create Oshkosh today. It's so different. It's been so organic through the years that it's just become this thing that's Oshkosh.
Yeah. That's the funny thing about, the DNA of something is you can look at it after it has formed and think, I don't know, maybe we can replicate. But when it happens organically like this, when it grows within itself and becomes what it is, it really becomes a one of one, right? And I think that's so fascinating about that. So you mentioned so talking about, the community with that, but the aspect of coming back. You and I were talking prior to this. You've been to Oshkosh once or twice before at this point, right? Maybe a few more times than that. Can you share with our viewers, one, I guess just how many times you've been at this point, but more than that, do you remember your first time going and first time you were at the show?
I do, and I figured this year is either my 39th or 40th one. I'm trying to remember exactly which, but I know it's the 34th one on staff. So it's been, a rich history just in those 3.5 decades. But the first one was 1978. I had a buddy of mine, and I grew up probably about 80 miles away from here in central Wisconsin. And we were brand new high school graduates, and we'd always heard about this cool fly-in taking place in Oshkosh, that all these funky things were there. And so we said, okay, let's come over. And we drove over one day, and it was kind of interesting at the time. They had a separation on the flight line. You had to be an EAA member or a pilot or a member of another organization to get inside the fence. There was a general public area and then the flight line itself. So we're standing in line, and we look at the sign and go, okay, well, we can't get up next to the airplanes. I guess we're just going to have to get the general admission ticket. And this couple turns around, and they're probably in their 60s at the time. And they say, oh, you're not members? No, we just came over from the day, a couple high school kids. Well, today you're our grandsons. And so they purchased us the pass.
What?
And I said, thank you very much. I don't know who those people were. I never saw them again.
Wow.
But they were members, and they took pity on these two kids to say, come on in. So walked in the gate, and we're seeing all this stuff. I was a biplane and warbird nut, and I saw my very first home built, which was either a long easy or a very easy. I can't remember which one, but I looked at it with a canard wing on the front and said, what in the heck is that? Yeah. And the guy who owned it was standing there. Yeah.
Okay.
And he said, well, it's a home built. I said, people build their own airplanes? Yeah. Now, if he had said, go away, kid, you bother me, well, that would have been the end of it. Yeah. But he said, no, let me show you. It's made out of fiberglass.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah, and before you know it, you had a couple more converts to the cause. And we're going, this is so cool. Yeah. And went a few more times through the 80s and then joined the staff in 92 and watched the growth of this event ever since. And it's been marvelous to see, and watching new generations come in. Some of our volunteers are on their 4th generation of a family volunteering. And to see that and see that tradition, that unbroken string take place is really very gratifying in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. Well, and you segued perfectly into something I did want to touch on is the family aspect of this. So I also will never forget the first time I went. I'm actually also from Wisconsin, from Dodgeville, tiny little town out
No, it's
that way.
Dodgeville Dodgers. I know it.
That's right. Yeah, and
Yeah.
Land's End. That's
Yep, exactly.
that's what put the town on the map. But yeah, and I was also I was in high school at the time, actually, so it's been 20 years or so. But and but the thing I wanted to touch on is you hit on this a little bit just now, the family aspect of that. You're not the first one that I've heard say, like the generations of people, the families that are there, the kids that are there, and that's one thing I love about not only aviation, but the culture around EAA and Oshkosh is this isn't, oh, someone's got a passion about it, so go attend and drag everyone along. It's no, this is great for everyone. And it sparks excitement across that and everything. And I guess what are your thoughts on that? And what makes it such a great family event?
Yeah, you put it really well, Nate, because you look at it, and again, I go back to Paul Poberezny, and he understood very early. He just had a high school education, but yet he understood people so well. And he said, if Dad comes one year, the family will go, okay, we'll come along one year or go ahead, but we're going to go on our family vacation every summer regardless. If the family is enthralled by it and they're engaged by it, they'll come back every year. The kids are saying, are we going to Oshkosh again? And that starts to develop. And so you see that in the campground where families camp next to each other for years and years and watch their families grow up. You see it when we have you go to KidVenture and kids can start riveting or be on a flight simulator or build a model rocket. And they go, cool, I've got something to take away from that experience. And that's a positive experience. A few years ago, we started introducing that 18 and under are admitted free, understanding that, okay, those are the seeds we're planting for the future generations of aviation. So let's get them interested. Let's not set up that barrier to say, oh boy, we've got to go through these fences and that gate and this special pass to get there.
Yeah.
We can go up there and we can talk to the pilots. Here's an F-22 pilot, and we talked to him, and he got a picture with our kids. And so it becomes that event and that experience. And once you create an experience for a family where the kids start talking about it and everybody goes, oh man, was that a great day? Then you've got something that will bring them back. And then sometimes these families start volunteering. They might help out in the campground. They might help out at KidVenture. And pretty soon, there's a tradition there. We're doing something. We're accomplishing something. We're not just going and buying a soda and sitting and watching an air show. We're in part of it. We're involved in it, and it's part of us. And that's kind of the genesis of it and where it's developed. And it just has that feel to it. Kind of you're in the big aviation city, and there's these little individual neighborhoods in there, and you go visit all these neighborhoods. And it becomes, that's my aviation hometown. And for a lot of the volunteers, that's my aviation family. I come back every year for it.
Wow, I love that. And one thing we're doing at Earhart. So Earhart, we've got a booth at AirVenture this year, booth 439, and we've one thing we're doing. We're partnered with Aviation. So I don't know if you've seen them. They're leading magazine, right? And really cultivating aviation for the younger generation. And that's what really excites me about, making aviation accessible is you got to break down the barriers to get into that, and aviation, it's complex enough. It can be overwhelming enough that it's very easy for aviation to feel like you're on the outside looking in. And anything we can do to really break down what those barriers are and go, hey, if you want to learn about pilot training, here, let's get you connected with people that can talk to you about that. And it makes it seem maybe more accessible, right? Less daunting to make the jump into aviation.
It really does, And first of all, what Jacob and the group have done with Aviation has really been wonderful, breaking that down, sharing the stories of other young people accomplishing things in aviation. And that's what it's about. We've seen it with the Young Eagles program. We're going to be flying Young Eagle 2.5 million at AirVenture this year. And doing that. And when you think about it, it's amazing starting off with that program in 1992 when Tom Poberezny said, hey, we want to fly 1 million kids in basically 10 years before the centennial of flight. A lot of people in aviation thought he was nuts. You're never going to get pilots to volunteer their time and fuel to go fly kids for free.
Right.
Well, they did. They stepped up and they found out how wonderful it is to share. And a great story, just last month, I was down in South Carolina, a few days off, and I saw that a local chapter in Walterboro had a Young Eagles rally, chapter 477. And so I called them up and said, hey, you mind if I stop out? No, we'd love to have somebody from headquarters. So went out there and saw those 8-9 pilots flying 36 kids over the course of a morning and just watching them bounce out of that airplane and say, this is so cool. And then you start sharing stories with the pilots saying, yep, I've been to Oshkosh, or I volunteer there every year and I've got this going on. And you get that sense of community, and the kids have this positive aspect about aviation that, wow, I can be a pilot, I can be a mechanic, I could be an engineer, I could create airplanes. And you take that, they get that at 7, 8, 11, 12 years old. Fast forward 20 years, not only, maybe they're in aviation, maybe they're not, but when that little airport is out there in their hometown, they'll go, no, that's a valuable place. I've had a positive experience there. That's something to be nurtured and cherished. It shouldn't just be bulldozed over. So there's a whole other series of reasons, along with creating future pilots and mechanics, that go into the Young Eagles program and really what you do about introducing aviation to young people.
Yeah, you hit something very personal on that one too. So I born in Wisconsin, but grew up in northern Illinois in DeKalb. And a little municipal airport, so not that far from Rockford. Little municipal airport there, and a core childhood memory. I remember there was a Saturday. There was a Young Eagles meet that day, and they had one of the hangars open. There was even like a pancake breakfast that was going on. So hangar door wide open, get some pancakes, get some eggs, and they had a couple. I think they were Piper Cherokees or something sitting out there that were doing some laps around and taking kids. And at the time, I was a lineman. I was pumping gas at that point as a job, and so I was there just being a part of the whole thing. And I will never forget, there was one moment, there was a kid that was his turn to walk out there and go flying, and it was exciting to watch this. And he walked out, and it wasn't hey, where do I step to get in, or which door do I go on, do I climb on the wing, how do I do this? I'll never forget, the question he asked was, can I touch the plane? He wanted he just wanted his hand on the side of the plane. Like, is that okay? Am I allowed to touch the aircraft? And it was one of those of like, you don't quite realize how deeply something may sink in until you watch someone have their first experience with the plane. And can I touch it? Can I be involved in what this plane is? And that particular airport too, that not only, does it serve the community there, there's a flying academy there, there's a lot of traffic that flows through there. It's one of those those gems of these little municipal airports that allow for general aviation to be the point-to-point travel that makes it so special, And
It is.
I love your comment on we gotta make sure that we're keeping it alive, the value of these little airports and what they bring to the community, what they bring to aviation. It's so much more than a strip of concrete on the ground,
It is, and it's been said oftentimes, you build a mile of road, you can drive a mile. You build a mile of runway, you can go anywhere. And that really is the truth. And you introduce that to kids. But your story, can I touch the airplane, is so true, because most people, when they associate with air travel, they think of commercial airports and the TSA line. And, and I tell people, you get the bag of peanuts maybe, and then you hope your luggage comes to the same place that you're going. And here, you break down that fence and go, this is it. It's not only this big airliner, it's personal. I can take this, and you're going to sit in the cockpit, and you're going to see everything happening here. You're going to get to see, and if you've got the Garmin sitting in the middle of the cockpit there, you get to watch that as it goes by. Okay, here's the fuel. Here's this. Watch the ball as we make the turn, and keep that in the middle, and all of those type of things. That's wonderful to explain. And when you see that light come on and they go, oh, that's how you do that. Yeah. They come out, and especially the kids that come out and tell their parents, I flew the airplane. Right. And the parents will turn to me and look at me, and I'll go, well, yeah, he did kind of fly the airplane. I gave him the yoke for a while, and I said, okay, nice gentle turn. And sometimes you have to tell the kids, gentle turn now.
Right. Yeah.
And so But to have them do that and I say, okay, you feel the airplane go left? You feel it go down? Yeah, you did that.
Yeah.
Wow. And that's an incredible moment for those kids.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it takes the barrier from I'm here and there's this world of aviation and goes, you know what, that barrier does not need to be that big, and there are ways we can break that down, which I love that. So I want to talk about the people a little bit too. So one thing that is incredible about AirVenture is you get to meet some legends. There are some absolute titans in the industry that show up year after year, and maybe some starstruck moments. I know we're bringing by. We've actually got Linda Sollers. She's going to be spending some time at our booth as well, and a lot of people may know her. She's the woman who went from her airline career into decided to build a sling and fly it across the Atlantic, and actually her plane is sitting about 50 feet from me right now in our hangar, and she'll be out. But what's incredible is these aviation legends walking around, and to your point, approachable, and wanting to be a part of this. You've certainly interviewed and met some extraordinary people. What kind of memorable encounters have you had?
Oh boy, there are a few of them that comes out. Meeting people like Chuck Yeager or Neil Armstrong for the first time at Oshkosh. I've got a couple of favorite stories. One of them, 2007, Morgan Freeman, the actor who has had a pilot's certificate, he came out with a buddy. And people, it's kind of tough to hide Morgan Freeman out here on the flight line. People, realize that's Morgan Freeman out here.
Yeah.
And so we asked him.
He talking, very distinguished voice.
Exactly. And so, we asked, could you do 20 minutes with the media? Then we're going to tell the media to leave you alone the rest of your time here. And he said, okay. Came very gracious man, introduced myself and said, I'm moderating the news conference today. And he said, well, thank you very much, in the Morgan Freeman voice, which comes out. And so we did that. And I had a young intern at the time. And he was a big kid. He was about 6'3" and about 215, rugby player, shaped like a V. And he says, what do you want me to do? I said, well, I'll introduce you to Mr. Freeman afterwards. I need you to stand here at the side of the stage and keep the media from coming this way. So in other words, stand there and just be large.
Sure.
Okay. And so, okay. So he did it very well. We come off the stage and get in. Craig, come here. And said, Mr. Freeman, this is Craig. He made sure the media doesn't bother you. Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate that, in the Morgan Freeman voice. And they drove off. And Craig turns to me and goes, that was so cool. And he says he's now a corporate VP out in Arizona. And he said that story comes up about once a year. Somebody says, most famous person you met. And he says, Morgan Freeman. Yeah. Where did you meet him? Oshkosh. And the other story that comes to mind right away, Nate, is Gary Sinise, who does a lot of veteran stuff, joined us one time. And he was here speaking to some of the veterans at the end of our Veterans Parade on Friday down the flight line. And he was getting done, and I was kind of playing tight end, blocking for him to get back to his golf cart.
Cool. Yeah.
And so we're going there, and suddenly he hears, Gary. He turns around and goes, Jim, and goes up, big hug. And it took a second to realize that it was Jim Lovell.
Oh my gosh.
Of course, from the Apollo 13 movie, they had worked together.
That's amazing.
Excuse me. And so it's all there in about 30 seconds. Everybody realized, oh my goodness, it's these two together, and the photos came out and everything else.
That's cool. Wow.
So we're getting on the golf cart. I said, Commander Lovell, you need to ride someplace. Oh yeah. I said, why don't you tell us you were here? I didn't want to bother anybody. And so there it is, and
oh my gosh.
But just those kind of chance meetings, and you mentioned it, just the people you run into, and by the time you go, was that? Yeah, that was that. And that's on the flight line.
Walking around,
Yeah, exactly.
And so, and just a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of stories, a wealth of experience with these people, and I think the inspiring thing is just, again, I guess it gets into accessibility, or maybe that's just the theme that I'm rotating a bit heavily on at the moment, but it does really bring people together when it's, it's like, hey, there's this entire world right here, and I'm amongst it, and I think that's incredible. So, we've got Linda Sollers will be at our booth during the week, and there for meet and greets and for people to come by and not only meet her, but actually we'll have her aircraft as well. So her aircraft is being outfitted with the Earhart avionics, and so she's going to be first flight. Actually, will be first non-Earhart first customer flight coming out with the Earhart system.
Oh, that's terrific. Yeah.
The other person we'll have at our booth is Haley Herberg. More people know her as Fly with Haley. She's
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
she's a big name, and really sharing the story of what aviation can be from an accessibility standpoint, and showing younger pilots the world of aviation and how you can really get into that. And she's got an interesting story. She's not only her posting content on flying these brand new modern Diamond aircraft. She also personally owns, I think it's a late 60s aircraft as well. And so you kind of see this clash of worlds of sort of what is this kind of old school aviation technology, and what's it like to kind of travel the world in that, and really exciting to see that. And so we'll have her at the booth doing a meet and greet and having an opportunity for people to see her and kind of connect with her, which is exciting. But when we're looking at people to meet and things to do, it seems like a fair amount of people also come to Oshkosh, not only to look at the aircraft and to be inspired by that and look at all that, but there's also kind of a research and shopping kind of component, like if you're looking to buy an aircraft, or you're looking to, buy, upgrades or engines or avionics. And so it's kind of like it's sort of this trade show aspect, right? Where if there's any time you want to see what it is you're thinking about purchasing or investing in, there's a fair amount of that going on now, right?
Well, there really is. It's become one of the world's biggest aviation trade shows, and for the general aviation crowd, maybe the biggest one, because you're exactly right, Nate. You can go, let's say you want to buy a new piece of avionics someplace. You can go to 4, 5, 6 different places and pick them up and talk to the people from the company and say, okay, what does this do that one doesn't do? Why does this fit in my aircraft, whatever it happens to be? And you mentioned the late 60s. I learned to fly in a 67 Cherokee 140, so I know exactly about tapping on the gauges, and things like that. And so, you can do those type of things, and you can compare, and some of the savvy people know too, okay, toward the end of the week, we know some of the exhibitors don't want to haul all the stuff back, so maybe I'll get a deal too. Those type of things take place. It's all of those things where they can be there and research. And you raised a great point that, if you go to an NFL game, you have a whole bunch of people, 80,000 people in a single day coming for a single purpose, to go to the game.
Mm-hmm.
You come to AirVenture and you'll have those 80,000 people in one day that will come for 65,000 different reasons.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a whole bunch of reasons to go.
Yeah, they're there to shop. They're there to see an air show. They're there to see the evening program. They're there to meet this guy or hear from this pilot they've always wanted to hear from. They're here to see their friends. They're bringing their kids to it for the first time, or maybe their grandkids. So all of these different reasons get built into this event. And to accommodate that the fact that the event does accommodate that is wonderful. To make it accommodate that can be a little exasperating sometimes, and definitely challenging.
Wow.
So how do you go to the hardcore aviator, the person who hangs out at the airport almost every day of the week, at the same time welcoming in the brand newbie, whether it's a kid, whether it's a young person, whether it's somebody who's now an empty nester, who says, this is always something I've wanted to do. How do I get into it? All of these people are here because it's this great cross-section of aviation, and making that all work is one of the challenges and one of the delights in AirVenture every single year.
Yeah. Wow. And I mean, just the volunteer effort that it takes to then corral all of that together, and the synthesis of all that is remarkable. One thing we're doing at Earhart this year as well is we've got Trip Thurston, president of Flying Finance. He'll be doing a seminar at the booth, talking about the world of financing on how to do this. One thing that I feel like is kind of overwhelming at times is sort of figuring out hey, aviation for many reasons is not necessarily that affordable at times, and so whether it's upgrading or purchasing, it can be kind of complicated to figure out how to what's the right strategy to do that in the right way, right? And the ins and outs of financing an aircraft purchase or an avionics upgrade and modernizing a panel and those types of things. And so that's one thing that we're putting on this week or that week is going to be, here, let's hear from Flying Finance on what options are there. How do you navigate that world? Which, hopefully that's a value add. It's certainly it's an aspect of aviation that any insight helps. Any tips to get that figured out are beneficial for sure.
Well, one thing that you mentioned, Nate, is so true there about AirVenture. We have our schedule of events, the EAA events that take place, and people like yourself, other exhibitors who hold their own little sessions where people can come and learn that directly from the people who know about it. Because face it, if you've been in a flying club and you say, boy, I'm thinking about buying my own airplane, even a pre-owned airplane, boy, that's a big step. There's a lot to think about in that.
Yeah.
And these things take place. And the little chance meetings between people, between businesses that take place at Oshkosh, there is another whole ecosystem that's going on at the same time, along with the scheduled events that take place over here. Right. All of these things are going on at the same time. It really is a place where everybody meets. And I can't tell you the number of people said, oh yeah, I'm going to meet my buddy at Oshkosh. We're going to talk about that. Or, do you know this person? Are they going to be at Oshkosh? And do you know how to get a hold of them?
Right.
Those type of things start taking place. Yeah. So it is something that it is a big city where people meet and interface and so forth throughout the entire week. And things happen that I'm sure that we don't hear about until there's a business deal announced 2 years from now. Those type of things that take place, or somebody brings their own airplane. I kid people that, at Oshkosh, you can buy a really nice airplane t-shirt and then go next door and buy the airplane to match it. It's kind of fun.
I love it. Well, and that's why, you called it out perfectly. We've got a week of programming lined up as well with Linda coming by and Haley coming by and Tripp coming by. And we've got a couple more people I'll get to. And it's for exactly that of, we want to be a part of that city that you're talking about. We want to be a part of, hey, if there's something people want to learn, they want to know, they want to understand, we want to be a part of having that conversation because, yes, at the end of the day, Earhart exists to create a safer and more accessible world of aviation through avionics and then a clean sheet aircraft that we're developing as well. But really, bottom line is we're a part of this aviation community to be a part of those conversations and help break down what those barriers are, and what a valuable place to be able to go and have all of that available, So I want to switch into the military side of aviation. I have a Air Force background myself, but Oshkosh does too, right? There's really military aviation has been a big part of that from the beginning. Can you kind of help unpack a little bit of the military aspect and the military presence that's been there? Yeah,
the military presence, a lot of it grew out of the early days of EAA when so many of those pilots were World War II and Korean War vets. And so they knew buddies who were still in the military. And so very early on, you'd had some of them said, hey, can you bring the airplane by and do a flyby or something like that? And as things grew and the grounds here at Oshkosh grew when we eventually moved to Oshkosh, there was the opportunity to start bringing airplanes in. You have to go back to the late 80s, early 90s, where we put in the first remnants of what's now Boeing Plaza. For those who've been coming a long time, Boeing Plaza used to be the taxiway, and then it would simply split off into four fingers. And that really came from after 1985, when Concorde landed here the first time, there was no place to park it on the flight line. It had to park over on runway 1331. So they built this taxiway, and they put four fingers on it. And then we started getting more airplanes. During that time, suddenly, that was the time when the F-117 came in and the Blackbird came in and the Antonov AN-124 came in.
Oh my gosh.
And pretty soon we're going, okay, we're kind of outgrowing this. And so
no kidding,
it's squared off and what you see as Boeing Plaza now emerged. But that allowed us to bring in like the C-5, and which led to a very funny story when the C-5 landed in 1992 and they said, okay, we're ready, get the tow bar out. And we told them, you were supposed to bring the tow bar.
No.
So
Oh,
we
no.
stared at each other. Well, there were even calls to the Pentagon that went on at this and all of that.
Yeah.
And
That's
it
not
ended
one of
up,
those little red scissor tow bars that you keep in the back
no,
of your plane, I'm assuming.
this
A
is a
little
proper
heavy
tow
duty.
bar. And
Yeah.
so about 1:30 in the morning, here comes this C-130 from Rantoulin, Illinois. And of course, the airport's closed at the time. And it lands. And of course, half the people are thinking, oh my God, what's going on? There's an airplane landing at 1 o'clock in the morning. And half the other people are going, this is the coolest thing ever. Look at this.
Yes.
And so the gate comes down. This crumpy old loadmaster says, I don't know who you people are or what kind of pull you have, but nobody gets this kind of service. Out rolls a C5 tow bar. They put up
My
the
God.
gate and off they go back to Illinois.
Oh, that's incredible.
So, those type of things, but it started bringing those in, and it really leaves us that almost any airplane on Earth can land at Oshkosh with an 8,000-foot runway. We've had the U-2 here. We've had the C-5 here. The A380 Airbus has been here. Concorde was here 5 times. All of these things, White Knight 1 and Spaceship 1 landed here. And those kind of things where people can go, again, going back to, if it has flown, is flying, or will fly, chances are it's going to be at Oshkosh at some point.
Yeah.
And people come here going, I saw that at Oshkosh. And I not only got to see it, like the C5, I walked through it.
Right.
And here was the crew telling me how they did stuff and strapped stuff to the walls and so on and so forth.
My gosh. Yeah.
So those type of things are just fun. It's those experiences. And one of my favorite times is always after the afternoon air show, about 7:30, 8 o'clock, sun's going down, and it's becoming kind of that golden hour for photographers. You just walk around Boeing Plaza and you take a look and you just turn 10 degrees at a time and see the different aircraft that are on that ramp at that moment and go, there's no place else this happens.
Yeah.
And you see other people doing the same thing, just enjoying the moment. And you go, wow, this is so cool. And that's what it makes all the work that we're going through right now in the final 3 months of preparation beforehand, that makes it all worth it to see people enjoying that and just being able to take in that moment every so often.
Yeah. And for many people, it really can be a once in a lifetime opportunity. It's not every day you could walk through a C5 or walk up to a C-17 or see a U-2 flying up close. These are not common sights. And that's incredible. We've got one military guest coming by the Earhart tent as well. David Valor. He was a F-16 pilot, and then now CEO of a number of different aerospace companies as well. And so he's going to be at the Earhart booth during the week as well, and an opportunity for not only to hear from an F-16 pilot. He's also just a very outspoken and very charismatic aviator, and and again, another one of those people that are just, it's incredible hearing their stories and hearing firsthand knowledge and firsthand experience from someone that, again, you just don't get to meet every day. Which a lot of magic going on at the air show.
There really is
a lot of really cool opportunities.
Yeah, there is stuff. I remember one Australian gentleman I ran into looked around, and this was in the early 2000s. He looked around as we're standing there and went, "You've got more airplanes here than we have in the whole bloody country." I went, "Yeah, I think you're right.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
and you mentioned people sometimes make this a once in a lifetime trip, and they do. They come, they've heard from somebody in Germany, in New Zealand, in Indonesia, in Brazil, that they've heard about this place called Oshkosh, that if you like airplanes, you have to go there. And so last year we had people from 90 plus countries here, and just to hear them talk about what they see here and what we have in the U.S. that really no other country has as far as general aviation. The ability, the freedoms that we do have. All of us sometimes get so tied into the regulations that we have to meet and are going to have to meet that we forget that we can still take an airplane and go pretty much where we want to go.
What an incredible thing, right?
Yeah, it is, and it's just led to so many great experiences. It's one of them. I'm very happy to have Meigs Field in my logbook, getting the chance to land there before it closed.
Okay.
and on an October night, and the wind was out of 17 at 2, and so you get to land at Meigs Field just
Oh,
straight in, no
yeah.
crosswind, nothing,
Oh, that's
and
beautiful.
it's sitting out
Beautiful.
there. Navy Pier is all lit up, and you come right over the top of it, and you land there. It's like landing on an aircraft carrier out in the middle of the
Yes.
lake, and
Right there by
you
the
know,
lake. Yeah.
yeah. Instead
That's
of
incredible.
driving 3.5 hours from Oshkosh through Chicago traffic down to downtown Chicago, okay, it takes maybe an hour, and you land, you tie down the airplane. 10 minutes later, you're at the Hyatt,
Yeah.
downtown
Oh,
Chicago.
oh my gosh.
That's what
Yeah.
aviation can do to people, and that's how you
Yeah.
explain it sometimes to the friends who don't do that but might want to.
Yeah. No, I love that. I sadly grew up too late in the world. I flew into mixed field in Microsoft Flight Simulator, but that's about it. Never had the chance otherwise.
You and
But
millions of others have done that, yes.
yeah, yeah. What a tragedy. So I want to shift into education and learning
Mhm.
for a second. So learning. I mean, aviation is lifelong learning. And it's not only baked into just sort of from the regulatory perspective, right? In terms of the check rides and the annual flight reviews and the currency requirements and all of that, but really woven into the culture of being in aviation is this spirit of always learning, always improving, always working on this. And so I think we would be remiss to not talk that one thing that's really great about going to Oshkosh is the number of workshops and forums and technical discussions, right? And even if you don't have any intent of buying something or looking at planes and talking to amazing people and meeting legends, you could at least go and learn about different topics, And one thing we have going on, so Linda Sollers, not only will be at the Earhart tent, but she's highly involved in Mosaic, right? And Mosaic is one of those just massive waves of innovation and opportunity coming into aviation right now and really opening up a lot. And so, there's a lot of opportunity there, but there's also a lot of learning to happen then, of what is this world of Mosaic and what does that mean for light sport and for experimental and for certified aircraft? What is that shaping? And so Linda's going to be giving actually 2 talks at the Earhart booth on navigating the world of Mosaic and kind of the inside scoop into how it's coming to be, but also kind of what comes out of that. But what else have you noticed on kind of the educational and learning part of AirVenture, and maybe some recommendations you have on what people should really make sure they do?
Well, some things I really recommend is, and you touched on it really well about the continual learning, the classic, now you've got your pilot's license to learn. And we're all like that as aviators, that you're always discovering. But, the FAA is there in a big way, and they have seminars throughout the entire week. You have people who are safety experts who would, if they were putting on a seminar someplace, charge several $1,000s just to come out and speak to you about the thing that you're getting for free, whether it's about pre-flighting, whether it's about aircraft maintenance, whether, a lot of talk is always about the turn back, the safety. Okay, I'm in trouble. You keep going, or is there a spot where it's safe? Constant debate about that. But is there something I can learn about that to make me a better aviator in that cockpit? And that's what it's all about. When you're sitting there, it becomes second nature, and you don't have to fumble for a checklist that, okay, this is what I'm going to do in that situation, and have that confidence and kind of that safety mentality all the time, which is so important for us in aviation if we want to continue to grow it and support it in the U.S. So these are the kind of things that are important, and you can get them right here. And again, these people, if you could get to one of their seminars, you'd pay for it. But here, they share this knowledge. And that's been part of the tradition of the EAA fly-in and of Oshkosh through the years, too, that we share the information. We want everybody to be the best possible aviator they can be. And these are ways to do it. So, people go through the forums. They pick out the ones that they want to. We have people come here who have never painted an airplane or done electrical work or installed avionics or anything like that before. And they go away with, okay, I have the knowledge now to know how to do that, or at least recognize if I do get somebody to do it, what they're doing and why they're doing it. And I know what questions to ask. That's so important to not only have the skills and the knowledge, but have the confidence. Because I don't care if it's aviation or a home improvement project, if you walk into it and you've got a tool but not a lot of confidence, you can pretty much be sure things aren't going to go well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I can say that for many home improvement projects that I've undertaken through the years.
As can I. I'll raise my hand on that one too.
Yeah. So, that opportunities here at Oshkosh, and whether it's through the forums, through FAA, or through exhibitors like yourself, here it is. I encourage everybody that wants to learn and find more of that confidence to go there and soak up all the knowledge you can. And then, oh, yeah, I didn't realize that. That happens thousands and thousands and thousands of times every single year during the event.
Yeah. And what I love about that, so I mean, but to your point, we're on that list of exhibitors that we're offering all of this for free, right? This is not, this is, please come and just learn, just explore this, right? And so, we've got email stuff. There are links and will be part of this video and part of the podcast on the programming we have going on, that Earhart has going on, and different ways to sign up and be a part of that. But for those that are attending and looking for different things, any way you would recommend that they get an understanding of what might be available for them? So you mentioned forums, but how else might people know?
Yeah, I think first of all, download the app. You go to ea.org/app, APP, download the app. So the schedule's right there. Our schedule's also on our website at ea.org. Just click on the AirVenture tab. It's all there. The exhibitor directory is there. Okay, you can type in a keyword and say, avionics, or even more specific than that, and those things will pop up.
Perfect.
And it'll give you locations and so forth. So I always encourage that. When you get to the grounds, if you're new here, be sure to pick up, a lot of people still like paper maps. Okay, pick up a paper map. The thing about the paper map, north is not up. This is a constant point of debate among many people. Because the way the runway is, if you're oriented, if you're at the main gate looking east, the runway is there. So we make the map to be like if you're standing there on Boeing Plaza trying to find where to go. We orient it the same way.
Intuitive, right?
Yeah, because 1836 is immediately in front of you. Well, there are those who say north should always be up. Yeah, but then we get people going sideways all the time because they're this with the map.
Yeah.
So the map is the map, but get that so you have a bearing on that. It all depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for cool airplanes, Boeing Plaza, Warbirds Vintage, head down into that. If you're looking for knowledge, the forum pavilions, the workshops, the FAA building, look for the schedules of exhibitors putting on things. If you're looking for the air show, well, bring your chair or your blanket up to the flight line and plunk yourself down and get yourself ready to go. If you're looking for technology, that's there. If you just like to people watch, find a bench and people watch because it's tremendous out there.
Absolutely.
To see the people going by, those type of things. If you're coming camping, I often tell people, take a shower in the evening, not in the morning. You'll have a better shot at some hot water in the camper shower buildings. Let's see. Don't mind eating at different times of day because, of course, everybody's a creature of habit. We eat breakfast, at 7 o'clock. We eat lunch at noon. We eat dinner at 5 or 6. And, if you don't take those times, well, then you don't have the lines. Okay, so we just eat at different times of days.
Eat on East Coast time or Pacific Coast time.
That's right, yeah, exactly.
Just pick a time zone that's not Central time.
Yep. Make sure if you get a chance, come on over to the museum. It's included with your admission. It's air conditioned, has flush toilets too. So you might want to remember that part. It's, but you've got 100 aircraft on display. The Kid Venture stuff. Take a ride out to the seaplane base. Catch the shuttle from the grounds, go out to the seaplane base. 100 airplanes parked out there. And it's like a whole different world. It's shady. It's right on the lake. They've got their own little ecosystem out there that takes place. It's another neighborhood within the whole. And, something that kind of takes you away from the hustle and bustle there at Whitman and gets you into that segment of aviation to move on. So those are just a few of the things. The Warbird in Review, Vintage in Review presentations, where some of those fabulous airplanes and the people who own and fly them are right there and you can talk to them. So again, there's a myriad of things to do and to find, and everybody always says, you can't do it in one day. You probably can't do it in a week. And I've never, ever, Nate, had anybody come to me and say, this is smaller than I thought it would be.
Yeah, or I ran out of stuff to do,
Yeah.
Yeah, you read mind with, I wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit on what are some kind of run a show things to talk through. And I love the rapid fire you just hit us with of, that's a myriad of things that people can check out. And actually, I was making some mental notes of some things I want to put on my own list. I love it. And I would like to add too, for anyone swinging by that want to fly a simulator, you got to check out the Earhart simulator. We've got the simulator up. You can reserve a spot, and you can see what the future of that aviation looks like through Earhart. So 25, 35, 39 years, 39 times going to this. I mean, really, you've seen AirVenture grow. You've seen it evolve. You've seen the community becoming really what it is. Any kind of final piece of advice you'd have for people,
Yeah.
if there's one kind of nugget going into this that you'd want to share.
I would say make AirVenture your own. I tell people you can make this event as big or as small as you want to make it. If you want to try to see everything up and down the flight line, go for it. Plan your day like that. If you want to we have people that come in and spend their entire week down in the ultralight area, and it's their community. They're there. This is what they do. And so, don't think of it, if you want to spend a time in one area, don't think of it as this enormous event. Think of it as this specialized community right here for you with like-minded people. And some quick things I always tell people, bring your sunscreen, stay hydrated. If you are follically challenged like me, bring a hat. Lip balm. I found out my first year, lip balm is really, really good because having burnt lips for the first 3 days is no fun. Comfortable shoes, wear that. You're going to do a lot of walking, more than you think. And all of those things, and observe the Oshkosh rules. And these were founded by Paul Poberezny. If you have a piece of garbage, throw it in the right place. If you see a piece of garbage, pick it up, throw it away. We're known as having one of the cleanest big events everywhere, anywhere. And that's very important. We're very proud of that, but it takes the community to do that and to contribute in their own way. And we see people after the night air show staying and picking up not only their blanket, but pieces of trash around them and putting them in the dumpster. I mean, that kind of attitude, it moves through. People understand it and they see and go, oh yeah, that's part of what being part of the tribe is as well, that we look after each other, we take care of where we are. And, it's something that's a part of it. And that's what makes another thing that makes it so incredible, Nate, that this group looks at it that way, that it's not this event, it's our event. It's our place to be and celebrate and meet and reunite and all of those things that are so positive and so much fun, and probably a lesson for us all someplace in there.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I love that. That actually, I got chills when you're saying that. No, Dick, it's been great having you on today. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with us and our listeners and our viewers, and just to you and everyone at EAA and everything you're doing to make this possible every year. It is a massive undertaking that is really made possible by people like you, by the volunteers, by EAA, just at large, and that entire body. So really truly appreciate that. And for everyone listening, we do hope you got some good bits of information here, and maybe had an opportunity to jot down a few things that were on your list. I do want to hope that the Earhart booth is on list for folks coming by, but also the meet and greets, the educational sessions, the industry leaders, the military aviators, the innovation, the family stuff that's going on, and the programming for that. Really, just incredible stuff to check out. If you're listening or looking at our video, please check out the list of programming going on at Earhart. It's all complimentary. It's all free. But it sounds like there's just a wealth of resources available. I know I'm going to go download or go check out the EAA app as soon as we get off this recording. I want to make sure I've got that bookmarked for myself as well, and the visitor guide and everything for that. So, but Dick, again, thank you very much for taking the time to be on. I know it'll be a sea of people. It'd be great to run into you while we're there, but I'm sure it's a busy event. But thank you for being on. Any kind of party thoughts?
Well, thank you so much. Looking forward. I'll try to make some time to stop over by Earhart and say hi. But the best thing I've got to say, hey, if you've ever thought about it, and we try to describe AirVenture to you, you just got to be there. That's the best
there.
way to
you
do it.
Check it out. Yep.
Exactly. But EA.org is the place to go to learn more. And I tell you what, Nate, we'll see you at Oshkosh.
Sounds great. Well, hey, whether it's your first Oshkosh or your 25th, we hope to spend some time. So it's great. For everyone, I'm Nate Thuli. Thanks for listening to What Follows. We'll see you at Oshkosh.